My parents called my fiancé trash. They boycotted my wedding. And 3 days before I walked down the aisle, they sent me a check for $50,000 to leave him. But what they didn't know was that I had just found a secret they buried 26 years ago. A secret so dark, it would destroy our family forever. My name is Jasmine. I am 28 years old. And I am about to tell you a story that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. Because when my parents called my fiancé trash and boycotted my wedding, they made the biggest mistake of their lives. Not because I am a vengeful person, I never thought I was, but because they forgot one simple truth. Every family has secrets, and I had just found theirs. Let me take you back to the beginning, or what I thought was the beginning. I grew up in a small town in Ohio called Fairmont. My parents, Richard and Diane, were the kind of people who cared a lot about what the neighbors thought. My dad was a real estate agent who always wore a suit to dinner. My mom was a homemaker who hosted bridge club every Tuesday and made sure her hair was perfect before answering the door. They had 2 daughters, me and my younger sister, Chloe. Chloe was the golden child. She got straight A's, married a dentist named Brad, and gave my parents 2 perfect grandchildren. I was the other one. I was never bad. I just was not what they wanted. I liked art. I liked music that was too loud. I worked at a nonprofit that helped homeless youth. I drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a dent in the bumper. And then I met Marcus. Marcus was a mechanic. He had grease under his fingernails and a laugh that filled up a whole room. He grew up in Detroit with a single mom who worked 2 jobs. He put himself through community college. He was kind in a way that made you feel like maybe the world was not completely broken. When he looked at me, he did not see a disappointment. He saw someone worth loving. I remember the exact day I knew I loved him. It was raining. My car broke down on the side of the road. I called a tow truck. Marcus showed up. He was wearing a worn-out jacket and boots that had seen better days. He looked at my engine for 2 minutes and said, "Loose belt. I can fix it in 10 minutes. He fixed it. He refused to take money. He said, "Pay it forward." Buy someone coffee? I asked him out for coffee instead. He said yes. And that was it. That was the beginning of everything. I brought him home for dinner on a Sunday in October. I remember exactly what he wore. A clean flannel shirt. Jeans without holes. He brought my mom flowers and my dad a 6-pack of craft beer. He shook hands. He said yes, sir, and no, mom. He was perfect, and my parents hated him. The dinner was quiet, too quiet. My dad asked Marcus about his job. When Marcus said he owned his own auto shop, my dad gave a little smile that did not reach his eyes. My mom asked about his family. When Marcus said his mom worked as a housekeeper, my mom looked at me like I had just admitted to a crime. After dinner, Marcus helped clear the table. He did the dishes without being asked. My parents sat in the living room with their arms crossed. Chloe and Brad had come over too. Brad was wearing a sweater that cost more than Marcus made in a week. Nobody said much. When Marcus and I left, he held my hand in the car and said, "I think your dad does not like me." I said, "He will come around." I was wrong. 6 months later, Marcus proposed. It was not fancy. He took me to the spot where we had our first date, a diner called the Corner Booth. He got down on one knee next to a jukebox that was playing an old country song. The ring was simple, a small diamond in a silver band. His hands were shaking. I said yes before he even finished asking. We decided on a small wedding, just family and close friends, at a little garden venue outside of town. I was so happy. I thought my parents would see how happy I was and finally accept it. I thought they would realize that Marcus was not trash, that he was the best thing that ever happened to me. I called my mom to tell her the date. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Jasmine, we need to talk." She came over the next day. My dad came too. They sat on my couch like they were at a funeral. My mom was the one who spoke. "We cannot support this marriage," she said. I asked why. She looked at my dad. He nodded. Then she said the words I will never forget. "That boy is trash, Jasmine. He has no future, no family name, no money. You are throwing your life away for a mechanic who smells like oil. We will not be at your wedding. And if you go through with this, do not expect us to help you when it falls apart." My dad added, "We have standards in this family. You are embarrassing us." I asked them to leave. They left. And I sat on my floor and cried until Marcus came home and held me and said, "We do not need them. We have each other." But here is the thing about that sentence. It was not entirely true, because I did need them. Or at least, I needed to understand why they were so cruel, why they could not just love me, why everything about me was always not enough. The weeks before the wedding were hard. Marcus tried to be strong for both of us. He planned the catering. He booked the photographer. He painted our bedroom a soft blue because he knew I liked it. But I saw the way his shoulders slumped when he thought I was not looking. I saw the hurt in his eyes when someone asked about my parents and he had to make up an excuse. One night, I woke up at 3 in the morning. Marcus was not in bed. I found him in the kitchen, sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. I sat next to him. I said, "What are you thinking about?" He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I am thinking about my mom, how hard she worked, how she never had anything nice, how your parents looked at me like I was dirt. And I am thinking about how much I love you, and how much it hurts that love is not enough for them." I held him. We sat there until the sun came up. Chloe called me a few times. She said, "Mom and Dad are just worried about you. They love you, they just show it weird." I said, "They called the man I love trash. That is not love." Chloe said nothing to that. The wedding was supposed to be on a Saturday in June. 3 days before the wedding, something happened that changed everything. And I do not mean that in a dramatic way, I mean that literally. A FedEx truck pulled up to our apartment. A man in a brown uniform handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter from my parents, and inside that letter was a check. The check was for $50,000. The letter said, "Jasmine, we are not coming to your wedding, but we want you to know that if you leave Marcus, this money is yours. You can use it to go back to school, to start over, to come home. We will not mention this again, but if you choose him, do not contact us. You will no longer be our daughter." I stared at the check. $50,000. That was more money than I had ever seen. It was more money than Marcus made in 2 years. It was a down payment on a house. It was a new life. A life where my parents approved of me. A life where I was not the disappointment anymore. And then I looked at the man sleeping on our couch because he had worked a double shift at the shop. Marcus had taken extra jobs to pay for our honeymoon. He had not complained once. He had just smiled and said, "It will be worth it." I tore the check in half. Then I tore it into quarters. Then I put the pieces back in the envelope and wrote on the front, "No thank you," and I mailed it back to my parents. I thought that was the end of it. I thought they would be angry and then they would eventually come around. I thought maybe in a year or two, we would have an awkward Thanksgiving and things would slowly heal. I was wrong about that too. The day before the wedding, Marcus went to pick up the flowers. I was home alone, finishing the place cards when my phone rang. It was Chloe. She was crying. She said, "Jasmine, you need to come to the house. Right now." I said, "What happened?" She said, "I cannot tell you over the phone. Just come." My hands were shaking as I drove. I did not know what to expect. A heart attack? A fire? A confession? I ran every terrible possibility through my mind. But I never ran the right one. Because the truth was worse than anything I could have imagined. I drove to my parents' house. The same house I grew up in. The white colonial with the red door and the perfectly mowed lawn. The house where I learned to ride a bike and had my first heartbreak and hid in my room when my parents fought. It looked the same, but something felt different. The air was heavy. The sky was gray. The birds were quiet. Chloe met me at the door. Her eyes were red. Her makeup was smeared. She had been crying for a long time. She pulled me inside and led me to the living room. My parents were sitting on the couch. They looked small, older than I remembered. My dad was holding a photograph. My mom was not looking at anyone. Chloe said, "Tell her." My dad cleared his throat. He said, "Jasmine, there is something you need to know about Marcus." My heart stopped. I thought, oh no, what did he do? What secret had I missed? Was he married? Did he have a criminal record? Was everything I believed about him a lie? My dad said, "We ran a background check on him." I said, "You did what?" My dad said, "We hired a private investigator. We had to know who we were dealing with, and what we found changes everything." My mom finally looked up. Her eyes were wet. She said, "Jasmine, Marcus is not who he says he is." I felt the floor drop out from under me. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. I said, "What do you mean?" My dad handed me the photograph. It was an old picture, faded, worn at the edges. It showed a woman holding a baby. The woman had dark hair and a tired smile. The baby was wrapped in a blue blanket. Behind them was a house. Not a nice house. A small house with peeling paint and a broken step. My dad said, "That woman is Marcus's mother. Her name is Alina." I said, "I know that." My dad said, "What you do not know is that Alina used to work for us." I did not understand. I said, "What do you mean she worked for you?" My mom spoke. Her voice was quiet. She said, 26 years ago, we hired a housekeeper. Her name was Alina. She was a young woman, single mother. She had a little boy. He was about 2 years old. Your father and I were just starting out. We had bought this house. We needed help. Alina was kind, hardworking. She cleaned our home. She did our laundry. Sometimes she brought her son with her. He would play in the backyard while she worked. His name was Marcus. I could not breathe. I said, "You knew Marcus?" "When he was a kid," my mom nodded. She said, "We knew him." And then one day, something happened, something terrible, and Alina disappeared. She took Marcus and she left town. We never saw her again until you brought him to dinner. And we recognized him. The eyes, the way he laughs, we knew immediately. I said, "What happened? What did you do?" My dad said, "It is not about what we did. It is about what Alina did. She stole from us, Jasmine. She stole your mother's jewelry. Diamond earrings, a pearl necklace. Things that had been in the family for generations. We confronted her. She denied it. But we found the jewelry in her bag. We fired her. We told her we would call the police if she did not leave town. She left. And she took Marcus with her." I shook my head. I said, "That does not make sense. Marcus would have told me. His mother would have told him." My mom said maybe she did not. Maybe she was ashamed. But the private investigator found records, court documents. Alina had a petty theft charge from before she worked for us. It was a pattern, Jasmine. Your fiancé comes from a family of liars and thieves. I was crying now. I could not help it. Tears were streaming down my face. I said, "You are lying. You are making this up to break us up." My dad stood up. He said, "We have proof. We have the police report from 26 years ago. We have witness statements. We have Alina's fingerprints on file. We are not lying. We are trying to protect you." I looked at Chloe. She was crying too. She said, "Jasmine, I did not know any of this, I swear. Mom and Dad just told me today. I am so sorry. I did not know what to believe. I still do not know, even now, writing this, what I believed in that moment. Part of me wanted to run. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to go home and confront Marcus and demand the truth. Instead, I did something I never thought I would do. I sat down on the floor of my childhood living room. I put my head in my hands, and I asked my parents to tell me everything. They talked for 2 hours. They told me about the summer Alina worked for them, how she always seemed grateful, how she never asked for much, how Marcus was a quiet little boy who loved to play with toy cars in the backyard, how my mom had trusted Alina enough to leave her alone in the house, how the jewelry went missing after a party, how my dad found it in Alina's bag when she was packing up to leave, how Alina cried and said she did not take it, how my dad called the police anyway, how Alina agreed to leave town in exchange for no charges, how my parents never spoke of it again. I listened to all of this, and something felt wrong, something felt off. I could not put my finger on it, but the story did not fit with the Marcus I knew. It did not fit with the Alina I had met. Marcus's mother was a quiet woman, a religious woman. She went to church every Sunday. She volunteered at a food bank. She lived in a small apartment and drove an old car and sent Marcus money even when she did not have it. She did not seem like a thief, but I had been wrong about people before. I had been wrong about my parents, or so I thought. I had believed they would come around. They had not. I drove home in a daze. Marcus was already there. He had set up the dining table with the flowers he picked up. He had candles. He had made my favorite dinner, pasta with lemon and garlic. He smiled when I walked in. He said, "Hey, baby, one more day. Tomorrow we get married." I looked at him, really looked at him. The kindness in his eyes, the calluses on his hands. The way he had never once asked me to choose between him and my family. The way he had just loved me, quietly and steadily, like it was the easiest thing in the world. I said, "Marcus, I need to ask you something." His smile faded. He said, "What is wrong?" I told him everything. I told him about the background check, about the jewelry, about his mother, about the police report, about what my parents said. The color drained from his face. He sat down at the table. He put his head in his hands. He stayed like that for a long time. I thought he was going to cry. But when he looked up, his eyes were dry. They were hard. He said, "Jasmine, my mother never stole anything in her life." I said, "The police report says she did." He said, "I do not care what the police report says. My mother is the most honest person I know. She worked 3 jobs to put food on the table. She never took a penny that was not hers. If she had jewelry in her bag, someone put it there." I said, "Are you saying my parents lied?" He looked at me. His voice was very quiet. He said, "I am saying that people lie. People do terrible things. And sometimes the people who seem the most perfect are the ones hiding the ugliest secrets." I did not sleep that night. Neither did Marcus. We lay in bed, side by side, staring at the ceiling. The wedding was supposed to start at 2 o'clock. We had 60 people coming. We had a cake and a band and a photographer. We had rings and vows and a future. And now we had this. A 26-year-old ghost. A missing necklace. A story that did not add up. At 2 in the morning, I got up and walked to the window. The street was empty. The streetlights were buzzing. I thought about my childhood. I thought about all the times my parents told me I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. I thought about the way my mom would look at me when I came home with paint on my hands. The way my dad would sigh when I talked about my job at the nonprofit, like I was a disappointment they could not fix. I thought about the check. $50,000, the price of their love, the price of my obedience, and I thought about Marcus, how he never asked me to be anyone other than who I was, how he held me when I cried, how he believed in me when I did not believe in myself. I went back to bed. I curled up next to him. He put his arm around me without waking up, and I decided that no matter what the truth was, I would not leave him. I would face it with him. At 6 in the morning, Marcus sat up. He said, "I am going to call my mom." He called her. I listened to his side of the conversation. He told her what my parents said. There was a long silence. Then Marcus said, "Mom, I need you to tell me the truth. Did you take that jewelry?" I could not hear her response, but I saw Marcus's face change. His eyes widened. His mouth fell open. He said, "What do you mean they know?" Then he said, "Mom, slow down. Tell me everything." He listened for another 5 minutes. Then he hung up. He turned to me. His face was pale. He said, "Jasmine, your parents are not who you think they are." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "My mom just told me the rest of the story. The part your parents left out. The jewelry was not stolen by her. It was stolen by your father. He was having an affair. He gave the jewelry to his mistress. Your mother found out. She blamed my mom because she needed someone to blame. Your dad went along with it because he did not want your mom to leave him. They framed my mother. They destroyed her life. And then they made her leave town so she could not tell anyone the truth. I felt like I had been hit by a truck. I said, "That cannot be true. My father would never." Marcus said, "My mom has proof." She kept a journal. She wrote down everything. Dates, times, what your father said to her, what your mother said. She has been holding on to it for 26 years, waiting for the right moment. She did not want to ruin your family, but she also did not want to be called a thief anymore. I said, "I need to see this journal." Marcus said, "She is driving here. She will be here by noon." The next few hours were the longest of my life. I tried to eat breakfast. I could not. I tried to take a shower. The water ran cold before I realized I had been standing there for 20 minutes. I tried to call Chloe. She did not answer. I tried to call my mom. She did not answer either. Marcus held my hand. He said, "Whatever happens today, I love you. That does not change." I said, "Even if my father ruined your mother's life?" He said, "Your father is not you. Your mother is not you. You are not responsible for what they did." I started crying again. I could not stop. I cried for Alina. I cried for Marcus. I cried for the little boy who had to leave his home because of a lie, and I cried for myself. For the girl who just wanted her parents to love her. For the woman who was about to lose her family all over again. At 11:30, Marcus's phone rang. It was his mom. She said she was 10 minutes away. She said she was not alone. She said she had someone with her. Someone who had been waiting a long time to tell her side of the story. Marcus asked who. Elena said, "Linda." I did not know that name then, but I would learn it soon enough. At noon, a car pulled into our apartment parking lot. It was an old sedan, blue, rust on the bumper. Elena got out. She looked older than I remembered, more tired, but her eyes were clear. Next to her stood a woman I had never seen before. She had gray hair and a sad face. She was holding a shoebox. Her hands were shaking. I went outside. Alina hugged me. She smelled like lavender and old paper. She said, "I am so sorry, Jasmine. I never wanted any of this to come out. I just wanted to raise my son. I wanted him to have a good life, but your parents called him trash. They boycotted your wedding. They tried to buy you off. And I realized that some secrets have to be told, not for revenge, for justice." I said, "Who is this?" The woman stepped forward. She said, "My name is Linda. And 26 years ago, I was your father's mistress." The world tilted. I grabbed Marcus's arm to steady myself. I said, "What?" Linda said, "I worked at your father's real estate office. I was his secretary. We started seeing each other in the spring. He told me he would leave your mother. He told me we would run away together. He gave me gifts. Jewelry, earrings, a pearl necklace. He said they were from his mother. He said they were mine now." She opened the shoebox. Inside were letters, dozens of them, yellowed with age. She pulled one out. She read it aloud. "My love, I cannot wait to be with you. Diane does not understand me. You do. We will be together soon. Just give me a little more time." I recognized my father's handwriting. I had seen it on birthday cards and permission slips my whole life. There was no mistaking it. Linda said, "Your mother found out. She found a letter in his jacket pocket. She confronted him. He told her it was over. But it was not over. We kept seeing each other. And then the jewelry went missing from the house. Your mother blamed Alina. Your father let her. He told me later that it was easier to blame the housekeeper, that Alina would leave town and no one would ever know. Alina said, "I did not steal anything. I never stole anything in my life. But your parents threatened to call the police. They said I would go to prison. They said they would take Marcus away from me, so I left. I packed my bags and I left town with my son. I changed our names. I started over. And I have been looking over my shoulder for 26 years. I said, "Why did you not tell anyone?" Alina said, "Who would believe me? A poor housekeeper with a petty theft charge from her youth. Against a wealthy real estate agent and his wife, I had no proof. Not until Linda called me last month." I looked at Linda. She said, "I found out your daughter was marrying Marcus. I saw the engagement announcement in the paper. I recognized the name. I remembered Alina. I remembered what your parents did to her. I could not stay silent anymore, so I found her, and I told her everything, and I gave her the letters." Marcus said, "Why did you wait so long?" Linda started crying. She said, "Because I was scared. Because your father told me he would ruin me if I ever told anyone. Because I was ashamed. Because I thought it was too late. But it is never too late to do the right thing." I looked at Alina. I said, "What do you want to do?" She said, "I want to go to your wedding. I want to stand in front of your parents. And I want to tell them the truth. In front of everyone, so they can never hide from it again." I said, "Today is my wedding day." Alina said, "I know." I said, "If you do this, my family will be destroyed." Alina said, "Your family was destroyed 26 years ago. They just painted over the cracks." I looked at Marcus. He said, "It is your wedding, Jasmine. You decide." I thought about my childhood. I thought about all the times my parents made me feel like I was not enough. I thought about the check they sent me. The $50,000 to leave the man I loved. I thought about the word trash, how they used it like a knife. How they thought they could define Marcus with that word. How wrong they were. I thought about Alina, working her fingers to the bone. Raising a good man on her own, being called a thief, being run out of town, being forgotten. I thought about Linda. Waiting 26 years to tell the truth. Living with the guilt, living with the fear. And I thought about Marcus. My Marcus. Who never did anything wrong except love me. I said, "Let us do it." We drove to the wedding venue separately. Marcus and I rode together. Alina and Linda followed in Alina's old sedan. The whole way there, I held Marcus's hand. I did not let go. I was scared. I was angry. I was sad. But I was also relieved. The truth was coming. And no matter what happened, I would not have to lie anymore. The venue was a small garden outside of town. White chairs. Flower arches, string lights. It looked beautiful. Marcus had worked so hard to make it beautiful. The guests were already there. 60 people. Our friends, our coworkers, the people who loved us. The band was setting up. The caterers were laying out the food. The photographer was taking pictures of the flowers. No one knew what was about to happen. No one knew that in just a few minutes, everything would change. I went to the back room. I put on my wedding dress. It was simple, white lace. No train, no veil, just a dress that made me feel like myself. I looked in the mirror. I looked like a bride. I did not feel like one. At 1:30, Marcus came in. He said, "My mom and Linda are in the parking lot. They are ready." I said, "Are you ready?" He said, "I am ready for the truth. Whatever comes after that, we face together." At 2 o'clock, the music started. The guests turned around. My parents walked in. They sat in the front row, on the groom's side, because they were not going to sit on my side. They had made that clear. Chloe sat next to them. Brad sat next to Chloe. They all looked uncomfortable, like they were at a funeral, and then something happened that nobody expected. The music stopped. The doors at the back of the garden opened. Elena walked down the aisle, not me. Elena. She was wearing a simple blue dress. She walked slowly. She walked straight to my parents. My mom saw her first. Her face went white. She grabbed my dad's arm. My dad looked up. His eyes went wide. He said, "Elena, what are you doing here?" Elena said, "I am here to tell the truth." She pulled out her journal. She held it up. She said, 26 years ago, I worked for you. I cleaned your house. I took care of your children, and you accused me of stealing your wife's jewelry. I did not steal it. Your husband gave it to his mistress. You knew that, but you blamed me anyway because it was easier than blaming him." My mom stood up. She said, "That is a lie." Elena said, "Is it? Then why is Linda here?" Linda walked down the aisle. She was holding the shoebox. She walked right up to my mom. She said, "Diane, your husband wrote me love letters for 3 years. He told me he would leave you. He never did. He gave me your grandmother's diamond earrings. He gave me your pearl necklace. And when you found out, he blamed the housekeeper. You let him because you did not want to lose your perfect life." My mom looked at my dad. My dad did not say anything. He just sat there. His face was a mask. He did not deny it. He did not confirm it. He just sat. My mom said, "Richard, is this true?" My dad did not answer. My mom picked up the shoebox. She opened it. She pulled out a letter. She read it. Her hands were shaking. She read another, and another. And then she started to cry. Not quiet tears. Loud, ugly, heaving sobs, the kind of crying that comes from a place deep down, a place where truth lives. She turned to Elena. She said, "I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I knew, I always knew, but I could not admit it. I could not admit that my husband was a liar, that my marriage was a lie, so I blamed you. I blamed an innocent woman. And I raised my daughters to believe that you were the villain. I am so sorry." She turned to Linda. She said, "And you, I hated you for years. I fantasized about hurting you. And all along, you were just another woman he lied to. I am sorry I hated you. I am sorry I blamed you instead of him." Linda was crying too. She said, "I am sorry too. I should have told you the truth. I should have told everyone the truth. I was weak. I was scared, but I am not scared anymore." The guests were silent. The band had stopped playing. The caterers stood frozen with trays of food. Everyone was watching. Everyone was holding their breath. I stepped out from the back room. I was still in my wedding dress. I walked down the aisle. I walked past my crying mother. I walked past my silent father. I walked to Marcus. He was standing at the altar. He was crying too. I took his hands. I said, "I do not care about any of this. I do not care about the past. I care about you. I care about us. I want to marry you, right now, in front of all these people, with or without my parents." Marcus said, "Are you sure?" I said, "I have never been more sure of anything in my life." The pastor looked at us. He looked at my mom. He looked at my dad. He said, "Should I proceed?" I said, "Yes." My mom said, "Wait." Everyone turned to look at her. She wiped her eyes. She stood up. She walked over to me. She took my hands. She said, "Jasmine, I have made so many mistakes. I have been a terrible mother. I called the man you love trash. I tried to buy you off. I chose my own comfort over your happiness. I cannot undo any of that, but I can tell you the truth. Marcus is not trash. He never was. He is a good man, a kind man, and I am sorry. I am so sorry." She looked at Marcus. She said, "If you will still have me, I would like to sit on your side of the aisle. I would like to watch my daughter marry you. I would like to try to be better." Marcus looked at me. I nodded. He said, "Okay." My mom sat down on the groom's side. My dad did not move. He stayed on his side. Alone, Chloe got up. She walked over to my dad. She said, "Dad, are you going to say anything?" My dad looked at her. He looked at me. He looked at Marcus. Then he stood up. He walked to the altar. He took off his jacket. He handed it to the pastor. He said, "Hold this." Then he turned to Marcus. He said, "I owe you an apology. I owe your mother an apology. I owe my wife an apology. And I owe my daughter an apology. I am not going to give it right now because I do not deserve to have it accepted. But I am going to sit down. And I am going to watch my daughter get married. And then I am going to go home and figure out how to become someone worth forgiving." He sat down on my mother's side. He took her hand. She let him. The pastor said, "Shall we begin?" We said our vows. They were not the vows we wrote. They were simpler. Marcus said, "I promise to love you even when your family is crazy." I said, "I promise to love you even when my family is crazy." We both laughed. We both cried. The guests clapped. The band started playing, and we danced. Alina danced with Marcus first. She held him like she had not seen him in years. She whispered something in his ear. He nodded. He kissed her cheek. Linda stayed for the cake, then she left. She hugged me before she went. She said, "I hope you have a beautiful life." I said, "I hope you do too." My mom came up to me later. She said, "I am going to talk to Alina. I am going to try to make things right. It will take a long time, but I am going to try." I said, "That is all anyone can do." That was 3 years ago. A lot has changed since then. My mom and dad went to therapy. They are not perfect. They still have fights, but they are trying. My dad spent 6 months in individual counseling. He had to face what he did. Not just the affair, not just the lies, but the way he let an innocent woman be destroyed to protect himself. He told me once, "I do not know if I can ever forgive myself." I said, "That is between you and God, but I am glad you are trying." Alina and my mom had a long conversation. It took months. They met at a coffee shop first. My mom cried the whole time. Alina was quiet. Then they met again. And again. Eventually, my mom apologized in a way that meant something. She wrote Alina a letter. She admitted everything. She offered to pay Alina back for the years of lost work. Alina refused the money, but she accepted the apology. She comes to Thanksgiving now. She and my mom sit on the porch and drink tea. It is strange, but it is also beautiful. Linda moved to Florida. She sends me a Christmas card every year. I send one back. We do not talk about the past. My dad sold the jewelry. He used the money to start a scholarship at the local community college for single mothers. It is called the Alina Scholarship. My dad never told me he did that. I found out from the newspaper. Alina found out too. She called my dad. She did not say thank you. She said, "You cannot buy back what you took from me." My dad said, "I know." She said, "But this is a start," and she hung up. Marcus and I have a daughter now. Her name is Hope. She has his laugh and my stubbornness. She is perfect. My parents adore her. They spoil her rotten. My mom buys her little dresses. My dad reads her bedtime stories. They are different grandparents than they were parents. I am grateful for that. Sometimes I catch my mom looking at Hope with tears in her eyes. I asked her once why she was crying. She said, "Because I almost lost all of this. Because I almost let my pride destroy my family. Because I am so grateful that you did not let me." Chloe and I are closer now. The secrets are gone. There is nothing left to hide. She told me she always felt like the golden child was a cage. She said she envied me for being the disappointment. Because at least I was free. I did not know what to say to that, so I just hugged her. And Marcus? Marcus is still a mechanic. He still has grease under his fingernails. He still smells like oil. He still laughs too loud and loves too hard. He is still the best thing that ever happened to me. Alina comes to visit often. She plays with Hope in the backyard. She teaches her how to plant flowers. She tells her stories about when Marcus was little. Hope calls her grandma Alina. My mom does not mind. She said, "That little girl can never have too many people who love her." Sometimes I think about that check, $50,000. The price of leaving him? I think about how close I came. How easy it would have been to take the money and walk away. To go back to my parents and be their good daughter. To live a life of quiet lies and perfect surfaces. But then I look at Hope. I look at Marcus. I look at the life we built. And I realize something. My parents did not call Marcus trash because he was trash. They called him trash because they were afraid of the truth. Afraid of losing control. Afraid that I would choose love over their approval. And I did. I chose love. And it was the best choice I ever made. So if you are out there and your parents do not approve of the person you love, do not give up. Do not take the check. Do not let them define your future with their fears. Fight for your love. Fight for your truth. Because sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who need protecting from themselves. And sometimes, just sometimes, the trash is not the mechanic with the kind heart. The trash is the secret you have been hiding for 26 years. I am Jasmine. I am 31 years old now. Hope is too. Marcus and I just celebrated our 3rd anniversary. We went to the corner booth. The jukebox was playing the same old country song. We ordered the same food we had on our first date, and we held hands across the table. Just like we always have, just like we always will. This is my story. It is not perfect. It is not clean. It is full of hurt and forgiveness and people trying to be better than they were. But it is mine. And I would not change a single thing, because every family has secrets, but not every family survives them. Ours did. Barely, but we did. And that is something worth celebrating.